Imported industrial gears are unaffordable. They are handmade and more cost-effective. Pakistan's open-air workshop only uses scrap iron to melt at high temperature. Giant industrial gears can be made naturally. Today, let's take a look at how Pakistan, with its ever-improving production technology, uses scrap iron for secondary manufacturing. Since large gears are relatively large in size, ordinary sandboxes cannot be used for injection molding. The only way is to spread the already mixed yarn flat in the dug large sand pit. This is the mold for subsequent molten iron pouring. In order to keep the gear in the center of the sand pit, the first thing to do is to use a wooden mold for positioning. The main purpose is to confirm the center point of the gear. The wooden mold can be placed above the yarn. Then the remaining molds are combined in the yarn root. This is equivalent to the size of the finished product. Considering that the teeth of the gear are special, in order to make the teeth and the wooden mold completely fit, a circle of hardened yarn core must be fixed at the edge. In this way, the yarn core can be closely attached to the wooden mold to achieve the molding inside the gear mold. This is the advantage of the wooden mold position, which can make the sand core fit the color and seam. When backfilling the soil, the sand core can also be used as support, so there will be no impact when pouring molten iron. This sand pit mold is generally divided into two parts, the upper and lower parts. The main purpose is to facilitate the removal of the wooden stand mold. Considering that the upper part should be sealed with the sand pit, the edge should be scraped with sand to form a flat surface so that there will be no risk of molten iron overflowing. Then separate the wooden mold from the sand pit. With the basic travel of the gear, because the gear needs to be driven by the shaft rod, in order to keep the axis of the finished gear hollow, the sand core of the original body should be placed in the sand pit. This is also the reason why the master needs to position it in the early stage to ensure that the sand core can be fixed in the center. After the master uses the yarn to create a glue column mouth, it is also necessary to use the large weight block of the molten iron glue column and the upper cover of the mold to provide downward pressure. At this point, the large mold is completed. In order to save the cost of gear production, the raw materials used are these scrap irons. The master works so hard because he wants to go out for travel, but he is short of money. You also need turnover before. You can try the worry ring in Douyin wallet. Open Douyin and activate the worry ring credit. Follow the requirements to apply for a maximum amount of 200,000 yuan. Just pay it back when the funds are in place. After the scrap iron is heated by the high-frequency electric furnace, the molten iron meets the requirements of the glue casting. After the molten iron is poured into the large glue bag, the master only needs to operate the large-scale line adjustment to pour the molten iron back from the mold glue casting port. For large-scale gear glue casting, although they have the support of mechanical equipment, in the process of pouring the molten iron into the mold, it still requires the division of labor and cooperation of multiple masters to prevent safety accidents caused by improper operation. When the internal molten iron is flush with the observation port, it means that the gear has been glued. After a night of cooling, the iron chain can be used to pull it out directly. When the sand core is fixed in the gear groove and the wolf head cannot be completely cleaned, it must be pre-processed with a stick first and then use their high-end electric draft to crush all the hardened sand cores in the gap and directly remove the sand and soil adsorbed on the surface. After the masters use their hands and feet to operate, the blank column parts must be cut with a bird. The two raised iron blocks on the top are formed by iron water glue columns. For common use, they must be completely cut off. Since their production and processing are separate, the blanks that have met the processing standards must be transported by tractors. Although their production environment is average, the entire production process is very rigorous. The parts cast by sand casting glue not only do not meet the requirements of use and size, but also have a lot of rough characters on the entire surface. Therefore, they must use their large turning tools to cut off a layer of the surface of the casting. After 3 hours of cutting, the inner wall of the elbow hole meets the use requirements. Because the tooth slot cannot be processed by a turning tool, the batch must be fixed on a high-end blasting bed. Through the repeated forward and backward movement of the turning tool, the rough characters on the surface of the tooth slot can also be removed, which can improve the glossiness of the tooth and make the overall data meet the use standards. The industrial giant gear cast with scrap iron glue has been simply produced. Such production and manufacturing is really amazing.